Before we continue, I wanted to share some exciting news with you. My new online, on-demand program, How to Advance Your Career with Your Current Employer, is officially live and ready for you. So if you're looking to speed up your career progress, check this program out via the link in the description. So a warm welcome to this Learning and Development Expert Series brought to you by Lassi Albin, and more importantly, a good selection of top learning and development experts from different industries. To kick off this series, we will dive into the world of banking and insurance and virtually head out to the beautiful Nordic country of Finland, where we will welcome our first expert guest, Miika Viljakainen. Miika is the L&D manager for OP Financial Group, that is Finland's largest financial services group. And prior to joining OP roughly 2 years ago, Miika spent 12 years working with Accenture on learning, change management, organizational design, projects in Finland, Czech Republic, Australia, and Poland. So what can I say? It's such a privilege to have you here today to share your expertise with us. Welcome, Miika.
Thanks very much, Lassi. It's nice to be here to talk with these interesting topics of learning and development.
So let's fire up the discussion with topic of learning geared organization and agile development within it. So at the moment, how important do you see that companies are looking the fact of being constantly learning and motivated? And more importantly, what is the likely outcome if that learning stops?
Yeah, I believe that the modern society is moving so rapidly that many companies are responding that to different ways. For example, my current employer, we are taking into use the kind of corporate agile or agile development methods all over the organization, not only in IT where it's traditionally used. So that basically means, for example, in our case, that we take the learning directly into the different areas of work life. So there are different ways, different kind of structures which supports the learning. So, for example, the prioritization, reprioritization has become much more important. That itself, it's already something that requires learning, constant evaluation from the goals, from the progress that you've made. And then these things can be supported, for example, in some ceremonies like retrospectives, sprints, backlogs, etc. So those are, for example, one example how the learning has become much more crucial in the organization.
No, thank you very much. So clearly continuous learning is needed and valued in your sector to stay up to date with the fast development. And I guess basically to stay competitive in the game. If we go a bit deeper, in your opinion, what are the most pressing and crucial L&D topics that you have recently tackled and dealt with? And where do you see the future heading?
So at the moment, kind of the traditional L&D has been very much kind of a dominating function in a way that it tells you what you should learn. Now there has been a shift that people, organization, individual teams, smaller units, they kind of evaluate and check what is required for themselves. So even though there are some more, let's say, traditional learning structures still required, like learning paths, for example, as part of the onboarding of new employees, there is much more kind of freedom and also need for reply those individual needs. It also means that once the kind of learning world becomes so vast, the kind of L&D organization can't reply to every single need by providing, for example, a predefined learning path. So that kind of puts a little bit more pressure on individual, but it gives you that freedom as well, that you can kind of steer your own career, own learning towards your goals that supports both you and also the organization where you are working at.
So more individual responsibility and to take charge as well.
Yeah, more kind of a self-directive way to learn. And then that also puts learning and development professionals, but also line managers in a position where they are more coaching than telling what the employee should do.
Building on that fact that the future will be more tailored in terms of training needs and the challenge that proposes, because the portfolio will expand. How could the future L&D unit look like and function in order to cater to this increase in portfolio?
Yeah, I think there is not one size fits for all. It's very difficult to go back to the time where let's say the L&D department provided whole learning catalog. Now, as you said, it's becoming much more diverse. Some part of the learning is something that you do, for example, reading some science articles, Harvard Business Magazine or whatever, and then some learning topics or solutions comes from your organization. But I think most of that comes elsewhere. So that also puts all L&D organizations into a situation where they need to think, is there always a need for central L&D? And then we also need to remember that organizations and the roles that their employees are performing are very different. For example, if I would be working in a customer focusing roles, I have to be on the phone constantly. Then kind of the planning on when I can study and what I should study can be much more difficult. Whereas many white collar workers, they have freedom, like full freedom for their calendar, for example. They don't need to reply to the customer calls all the time. So they can choose when they learn. And potentially they have a little bit more freedom also on location, for example, where they can learn what they can learn. Learning and development should respond to the organization needs and think about all the factors that impacts to that.
Yes, and that kind of brings us to the next exciting part of, as the individual needs to take more ownership, I would say, in the what training is required and needed, and it's coming more from the business side, operational side. What would you advise them? How can an individual talent best take charge of their professional learning and development, and therefore their career success?
I think the best way is to just to kind of look and analyze yourself. What is your motivation? What are your strengths and weaknesses? So first of all, if you choose the topic that you are naturally motivated, then you also learn better, you perform better. If you have that luxury that you can choose the work and the learning topics that are motivating for you, you definitely succeed better. Then obviously it's good to understand your strengths and weaknesses. It's not that you should not have weaknesses. It's okay, but you should be aware of those. And maybe too often people focus too much on weaknesses because, well, it's my personal belief, but I think people's strengths are the ones that make them succeed, not the weaknesses. So you can think carefully where to focus your learning efforts that will progress your career towards the direction that you are likely to succeed and enjoy.
Wonderful tips. Thank you. Let's take a closer look at your particular industry, which is banking and insurance. What makes your industry unique? And as a consequence, what are the top skills that are on your learning and development agenda?
I think banking and insurance is characterized with heavy regulation, especially after 2008. We have had new regulations coming all the time. So those are something that very much characterizes the banking and insurance industry.
You mentioned 2008, any massive regulation-driven training programs that you could mention that you've been going through with your teams?
Well, in the banking industry, for example, and I think all industry, we have seen GDPR training programs in recent years. Then there, in the banking area, insurance area, there are quite a lot of restrictions, for example, around the mortgages. There are so those are the typical things that have become much more kind of tough regulation. So there's been constant need to respond that regulation and teach our organization to meet those needs, that the mortgages are only given to the people that can pay them back, etc.
Very good. And if we stay in the banking and insurance industry, there's also, outside of the technical skills, there are the transferable skills. So what would you see as the top 3 transferable skills that you see highly valued and that can always be improved and used for career advancement?
Yeah, I guess the first one is knowing yourself, like in one of our previous comment. But then, of course, in the banking industry, analytics has becoming more important, and I believe it's across the industries. Then you always work with the people, and even in the new reality with the COVID and stuff, you need to understand how to keep the customer in mind, how to work with the people, and also, for example, how to do sales. So those are some examples of the transferable skills that everyone should kind of look at.
Good. And how would you recommend that individuals could pick up on those skills? What are the some ways to acquire those skills by their own means, you know?
Yeah, I think better to start small. So, for example, if I would like to study and understand better analytics, maybe think, okay, which tool could be something that I could take grasp of? It could be Excel, it could be Power Query, Tableau, whatever tool that you use for analytics, and maybe learn the basics and deepen those skills, apply those skills in your daily work. And then also be consistent. So apply those skills regularly. Don't just, it's not enough if you take one course like now, if you don't apply and use it on a regular basis. You will forget those skills.
True. You mentioned analytics, and that's part of the skills that tech has made us to need. How would you do, because technology is moving lightning speed now. How do you see your company's L&D evolving in these changing needs to support the talent?
Yeah, I know that its talent is difficult to get in technology at the moment in some areas. So one of the way is to upskill your own people in certain areas. So, for example, in our company, they've designed Software Academy. So what they did is that they kind of think about or defined the critical skills that they need in development area, and then they build Software Academy around those skills, and that's been successful. And what they actually now doing is that originally that Software Academy was for that development organization only, but now they are opening that for company-wide.
Okay, so anybody can jump in and take courses when seen as fit.
Well, well, almost anybody. Of course, it's good to have some understanding on technological development to dive in those topics. But basically, yes, yeah.
Okay. Linking to that one, analytics, AI, machine learning, they are on everybody's lips nowadays. Some embrace it, some are scared, some study more, different approaches. In your opinion, should we all jump on it and learn and to be equipped in all those things for the future? And if so, how can we do this learning?
Yeah, so analytics, I think, is very important, as you potentially could have guessed on my previous comment. It's basically also critical thinking, learning and understanding and interpreting the analytics. That's something that I would say definitely yes. For AI and machine learning, for example, I would say that not everyone needs to have, let's say, deep skills on those. But for example, if we think about machine learning and AI, for organizations, it's very beneficial that almost every employee has understanding what AI and machine learning can help with us. Because, for example, when we automate the processes, usually the kind of input will come from the people doing that work. They get an idea that, hey, maybe machine could do this part of the work better, and I can focus on, let's say, more challenging types of work, or the work that at the moment technology can't do that well. So therefore, it's important that AI and machine learning is understood, but you don't necessarily have to have skills on them.
Makes perfect sense. We're coming to the end, but I really wanted to get your thoughts on one more high impact question. We have a lot of line managers watching this series, and the question will be, how can a line manager best work together with the L&D teams to gain the benefits for their teams and the company as a whole?
I would say that the best way is to let learning and development teams know if there are some specific needs, if there are some concerns related to learning. So then learning and development teams can offer some solutions to those. So that's potentially the first thing that line managers can do. So have this dialogue with the learning and development teams, and then they are better able to help their own teams as well.
Okay, so not just individuals taking ownership, but the team leads taking ownership and speaking out.
Yeah.
Okay.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you very much, Miika. It's been really nice to have you here for this talk and to receive your expertise and tips on L&D, on a company, and also on an individual level. I would like to wish you all the best and happy, productive trainings. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you very much, Lassi. Have a great summertime.
My new online, on-demand program, How to Advance Your Career with Your Current Employer, is officially live and ready for you. So if you're looking to speed up your career progress, check this program out via the link in the description.